How did you become a Bigfoot researcher?
Retired, I had a lot of time on my hands, you know, and I always believed in this Bigfoot legend and everything else, but I have to give Paul Bartholomew all my credit because I attended a seminar that he put on in Whitehall at one time, and I was amazed of all the information that he put out about Vermont. And the areas that he talked about are right in my hometown or within a mile of where I live. And then I purchased his book, Monsters of the North Woods, and I couldn't believe that all the sightings and encounters right within 5 or 10 miles of my house. And that really, really turned me on to really get into this. And then I started to check into these things, and I met people that told me of their encounters, and I just was amazed at what was going on in this area of Vermont, especially around my own area. And
now,
what really... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's been at least one sighting that was just up the road from your house, was it not?
Well, I'll tell you about that sighting. I was having a hunting cabin built by a local contractor that was a friend of mine, and he had the cabin just about completed. And I was out there staining the deck on my cabin, and he said to me, "Well, Frank," he said, I have to go home. He said, "I'm going to go home, have some lunch." It was around noontime. And he said, "I'll be back about 3 o'clock. I have to go to the hardware store, and I'll be back about 3:30. I said, "Okay, fine." So he left, and I continued staining my cabin. And about 3:30, I see his truck pulling into my cabin area, you know, and it was in a remote woods here, very good hunting area. And he gets out of his truck, he walks up to me, and he has a very peculiar look on his face. I mean, something was bothering him. And he says to me, "Frank," he says, is there a circus or a carnival in this town or anything like that?" And I says, no, not at all. I said, "Not around here." And I says, "Why?" He says, "Well, going down the road," he says, "on your street," and he said, "I come to this pond here, Breezy Pond," and he says, "As you know, you go around the pond and it's very curvy and downhill." And he says, "I see this gorilla scooping down on the edge of the water. It looked like it was either pulling weeds up or it was drinking water." And he says, "I stopped my truck," and he said, "I'm looking at it," and he said, "I can't believe what I'm seeing." And he says, all of a sudden it got up, it looked directly at me, and just turned, walked back in the woods, and disappeared. So I said, "Well, gee, that's something." I said, "Did you tell anybody?" He said, "Are you crazy?" He says, "What do you think? What do you want? People to think I've been smoking something or drinking something? I've got a business." He says, "I can't tell anybody." He says, "You're the only one I'm telling." So, I mean, and it's, where this pond is only 3/10 of a mile from my house. So, I mean, this really shook me up, you know, and I've been looking ever since. And then right down the road from me, not even a mile, this is in 2009, a woman and her husband were boating on this Lake Bombazine. I'll give you the name of the lake. And they said on the western side of the lake in the mountain area, they said they saw a large, what it looked like, a gorilla type, something large, hairy, at the edge of the water. And then also that walked back into the woods and disappeared. And this, like I said, it's not even a mile from my house here, and that was in 2009. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of activity in my area.
Okay.
And as Paul was saying about Chittenden area, I have 2 reports from Chittenden in 2009. Another contractor was doing work for me at my house here, and he told me that him and his partner were traveling in Chittenden, one of the back roads, looking for a mailbox with a number on it so they could find the house that they had the work to do on. And he said they were driving slow in their truck, looking both sides of the road for the road sign or a house sign or something. And Chittenden is very wooded and mountainous, and it's real remote country out there. It's very nice. And he said all of a sudden what got his attention was a branch swung up from the ground up into the air, like, he said, like if something was holding it down. And he said he looks, and he says now he sees something reddish brown, huge. He says just walk away, walk into the woods, very muscular, And he says, long red hair. He said, was not black. He said, it did not turn. It did not run. It just walked on two legs back into the woods. And astounded, he turned to his partner, and he said, did you see that? And the guy turned around. He says, yep, just like this. He said, yep, Bigfoot. And he says, I couldn't believe it. He says, and he says, that's my story. And another thing, he would not tell anybody either. He said, I don't want to be ridiculed. I'm afraid to tell anybody. Who do you tell? 2 weeks later, he called me again. Yeah. And he says, Frank, I'm doing another job in Pittsburgh. That's 2 miles from Chittenden. He says, and I'm talking to the lady, and I told the lady, I said, gee whiz, what I saw down the road. And she says, oh, my God. She says, that's something. She says, just last week, she says, 6 o'clock in the morning, she says, I'm getting dressed to go to work. I'm looking out my back bedroom window, and she says, here's this thing about 6 foot, 7 foot tall, huge, arms swinging, reddish brown, walking back of my property, back into the woods, and that thing disappeared. She said, it scared the death out of me. She said, I don't know what it was. And that's Chittenden, within 2 miles of Chittenden. So there's a lot of, like Paul Bartholomew said, there's a lot of activity in that Chittenden area also. So those are more or less recent sightings and encounters that I checked into. So that really got my attention.
Now let's talk about what prompted you to put a trail camera up near an apple tree that you were having.
Okay. Well, I have several apple trees in my yard. Matter of fact, I planted 15 of them years ago. I have maybe 18 apple trees on my property, and they're in my front and backyard. And I have the deer coming all the time. I have a lot of deer. Matter of fact, there were 6 of them here just tonight at 6, 7 o'clock. You know, we were watching them out the window. And I have this one tree that's the beginning of my property, and this year's apple crop on all my apple trees were completely loaded. I mean, I've never had an apple crop like this. And this one particular tree it was just, oh my God, I couldn't believe how many apples. It was just, you have to picture a tree, so many apples at the branches had just fallen down, you know. I mean, there were thousands and thousands of apples on that tree. And it is the thing about this tree is this apple tree, it ripens in early August. It's the earliest apple tree that I have to ripen so early. And the apples are very good. They're a light green color in August, but in September they turn yellow and they're very mushy, and all the flavor's gone by then. They're just, you know, it's just animal food. And this is what I have here. I planted those trees for a food source for the animals here, you know, for the deer and whatever. So anyway, one day I come into my yard and I happen to I always look at that tree to see if there's anything under it or what kind of animals I have there. And I was amazed because if you picture a tree full of apples and all of a sudden there's a section of that tree, I would say 5 by 5, 5 foot wide, 5 foot high, no apples, completely devoured of apples. There was not an apple. And I looked at that, I was amazed. I said, wow, what ate that? So I came into the house and I told my wife, I said, come with me, I want to show you something. So we go out to the tree and I show her. I said, look at this. I said, oh, my dog. So she says, well, gee whiz, the deer must have been hungry. And I said, I don't think that was a deer. And I says, I don't think so. So my dog is barking here. So anyway, I says, I think that was a bear. I said, because look the way everything is eaten on this tree. So she says, well, gee whiz, you got cameras. Why don't you put them up? I said, you're right. I said, they're sitting on a table. I said, I'll put it up. So I put the camera up. I set it up. It was like 6 foot in the tree. And I cleared the branches off and everything so I'd get a clear shot so there wouldn't be any interference. And I left it up for 7 days and 7 nights. And then the following Saturday, I took it down. I brought it in the house. My wife and I, we put it on the computer to see what kind of pictures we had. And the first 3 or 4 pictures I had were daytime pictures that were perfectly clear. They were beautiful in color. And they were of crows eating the apples. And that was common. I said, yeah, well, you know, we know that. So then the night pictures come. The next 3 or 4 pictures were of one coyote, the same coyote on 3 or 4 different pictures. And it was a night photo. and he was eating the apples, which I know coyotes do, fox do. But anyway, the thing that mystified me was one of the last coyote picture it shows that the coyote is in a scared posture. It's something scared it, frightened it. It's got its tail between its legs. It's all humped up. Its fur is up in the air, and it wants to get out of the area. And I said to my wife, wow, what the heck scares that? So then we go to the final picture, the last picture we had on my camera, and we both said at the same time, what the hell is that? And that was our exact words. I mean, we were astounded at what we had there, and we had some kind of creature. I don't know what it was. I said, what is that? I had my idea what it was, but we didn't know a thing about it.